Welcome everybody to the Unchained Services webinar. This is Introduction to Multisig with the Unchained Concierge team. My name is Tyler Campbell. I'm a technical director of the Concierge service at Unchained, joined today by Phil Geiger, our managing director of Concierge. Really excited to give you this webinar today on multisig, introduction to multisig. These webinars are really designed to help empower you on your Bitcoin journey through education, covering specific topics. Today, it's going to be the introduction to multisig. So we're really going to dive into it here. And first, as we always do, we're going to be starting with a review of the agenda. Now, I do want to mention, if you're viewing this and maybe you join late or you have a friend join late, there is a replay that happens right at the conclusion of this webinar. So just stick on. You're going to be able to see that replay pop up for you. And it is also, of course, going to be provided to YouTube on our Unchained YouTube feed after the webinar. So starting now with just an introduction of the agenda, what we're going to be covering today, what we're going to be diving into. We're going to start with why self-custody. Then we're going to move into an intro to multisig. We're going to then go a little bit deeper and intro to collaborative custody, what we offer at Unchained Capital with our concierge service and our Unchained Vault product. We'll talk about how to get started and how we really put that product to full use, the concierge service, what we're there to help you with along the way. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. This Q&A is really designed to help answer any questions you might have. So if you're new to Livestorm, just want to let you know, if you do have a question that pops up at any point, throughout the presentation today, please put that question down into the question box in the lower right-hand portion of the Livestorm, just so we get eyes on it as a team. If there's a question in that box that you see that you really want to have answered, upvote it, because we are going to be seeing the upvotes on certain questions. We can pull them up for everybody, so everybody viewing live will be able to see that question. We'll read it aloud for you viewers who might be viewing this webinar after the fact, and we'll make sure to answer any question that comes our way. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Phil, talk really about why self-custody. Phil, why do we self-custody?
Thanks, Tyler. And yeah, for everyone joining, just to reiterate, I'm Phil Geiger. I'm the managing director of our concierge services here at Unchained. And self-custody for me is really something I'm passionate about. It's something that I believe, just like when you finally figure out Bitcoin and understand its scarcity of 21 million and it kind of clicks in your head, I think taking control of your private keys is really that next step. It's almost the final exit. Buying a little bit of Bitcoin with a custodian, it's good, but once you take control of your private keys, now you're starting to use the permissionless network. You're starting to really use Bitcoin. So when trying to define why self-custody, I was thinking about putting together just a list of bullet points, but I felt that actually the news headlines of 2022 would do a better job of explaining why self-custody than I might ever be able to. So what I have here are 3 headlines from earlier in the year. And I'll kind of go through and talk about each one, but really what I think is important to realize is that self-custody, or holding the private keys to your Bitcoin, is going to protect you from all of the things that I show you today. So this first headline, Canada says it'll freeze the bank accounts of Freedom Convoy truckers who continue their anti-vaccine mandate blockades. So this is a scenario where a government cut off protesters from the financial system. So regardless of if you agree with the protest or not, we have to look at the facts here. The government cut off protesters from accessing their money. If you hold the private keys to your Bitcoin, that's a non-issue for you. That's not possible. You can always move your funds permissionlessly. Another headline, kind of at a more macro or broader scale, is banks stopped Putin from tapping a $630 billion war chest of gold that Russia had stockpiled before invading Ukraine. So Russia was securing gold in a foreign bank, and they were unable to access that gold when they needed it. And again, regardless of how you feel about the headline, the fact of the matter is a sovereign nation was cut off from the legacy financial system. If you hold the keys to your Bitcoin, nobody can cut you off from the financial system. At the bottom here, we have Coinbase, our friends over there at Coinbase. They blocked 25,000 crypto wallets tied to Russian suspected illicit activity. I think the key thing to note here is suspected of illicit activity. These are guilty until proven innocent. So even in the cryptocurrency scene, until you hold the private keys, you're not using that permissionless nature of Bitcoin. So holding your keys isn't really an ideology; it's really a security platform. It's a security pillar that we build off of. Moving on, so there were some other news about Coinbase recently about their terms of service and how you are in fact a creditor of Coinbase. And this holds true for really any third party. So up at the top, I have Celsius here. Something to note is that if they go bankrupt or are unable to pay their obligation, you may not be able to recover your funds, and you don't have any other rights other than as a creditor of Celsius under applicable laws. Below that, just another company, Voyager. They offer a yield program. So you send them your Bitcoin, they lend it out, rehypothecate it to try to generate yield. And they're doing this solely at your risk. So if they make a mistake, you're in trouble. And I'm just picking on these two companies, but really it's applicable across the board. Any yield program out there today, it's going to have very similar terms of service. The final few headlines I just want to cover about why we should self-custody our Bitcoin. IRA Financial Group, it's a Bitcoin IRA company. They were hacked and lost $38 million of their clients' retirement Bitcoin. Them and Gemini are now going to court to try to recover some of the funds. So this one in particular, I thought was pretty interesting because it's people's retirement. So be very careful when you're picking Bitcoin IRA provider. Make sure that the company that you're working with understands Bitcoin. In this scenario in particular, I think they had access keys unencrypted in email. So easy mistake to avoid if you have a firm understanding of how Bitcoin works. Below that, again, kind of over at Coinbase, 6,000 of their accounts were impacted by social engineering attacks. So these accounts had two-factor authentication on, but their SMS was taken over, and the hacker was able to social engineer their way into an account with Coinbase. And again, not to pick on Coinbase, this holds true of any third-party custodian. Even if you have two-factor authentication, your email address is really the vulnerable aspect there. So if somebody can get into your email, they can social engineer their way around two-factor authentication to drain funds. Down at the bottom, this last one I want to cover is interesting because it really describes how these yield companies earn yield. So they're taking client Bitcoin, they convert it into some other altcoin that maybe you don't have any interest in necessarily investing in or holding. And those altcoins are how they're trying to generate yields a lot of time. So Terra was an altcoin that recently collapsed to zero. So it was a stable coin, had $1 value, went all the way to zero. Celsius here was using it as part of their yield program and was lucky enough to be able to pull out some of the funds. But this is kind of what's happening to your Bitcoin if you are posting it as yield. These companies are taking it, they're going to these relatively insecure DeFi platforms and trying to earn some sort of returns for you. So don't want to scare anyone too much, but I just thought that the headlines from the last 6 months really would do a better job of explaining why we want to care about holding our keys than I possibly could have. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Tyler, who's going to give us all an introduction to multisig.
Thank you, Phil. So introduction to multisig. Now that we have kind of covered the counterparty risk side of things, right? Where if you're using these exchanges, you don't hold the keys to your Bitcoin. They hold the keys, right? They hold the keys to your Bitcoin. What might show in your account as a digit on the screen, that's maybe your claim to Bitcoin, but you don't actually hold the keys. You can't move that Bitcoin as you so please. You can't, take that step into securing your Bitcoin in the best way possible. So as we dive into an intro to multisig, I do think it's impactful to kind of take just a step back and think about single signature, right? Just the idea of a private key, what it means to hold the keys to your Bitcoin. So on the screen here, we have on the left-hand side, kind of working towards the right, we have a private key. We have a private key that, is generated from that private key generates a seed phrase. So you're going to think that, you hear hardware wallets discussed oftentimes. We call them hardware devices. Could be a popular brand like a Trezor or a Ledger or a Cold Card. That device, when you set up that device for the very first time, it's going to generate you a seed phrase. So that seed phrase is a list of 12 or 24 words that you write down and keep physically secure. That is like the backup to your key, right? If your device, that Cold Card, Trezor, or Ledger, ever breaks or becomes destroyed, you could take your physically secured seed phrase and recover it onto a new device. That seed phrase is like your master private key. From that private key, what happens in the background, kind of cryptographically, really, really cool, is that private key is used to generate a public key. You can kind of think about the public key as like the lock that private key can go into in order to move things. Now, what's constructed from that public key, from that lock, is your Bitcoin address. Now, on the right-hand side, that's a really important point to kind of reiterate, is that all Bitcoin, whether that's on Celsius or Coinbase or Bitcoin held with your own keys, all Bitcoin lives on addresses that are tracked on the Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin doesn't live inside of any hardware wallet. There's no other special mechanism where Bitcoin lives if you have it at an exchange. All Bitcoin lives on addresses. It's really just, you have to think about who holds the keys ultimately to that address. Do you hold the keys? Did you generate your seed phrase and you hold the private key to a Bitcoin address? Or does a third party, does a counterparty that could then be susceptible to everything that Phil was just talking about, right? Arbitrary state, mandates or shutdowns, could be social engineering attacks. Is your Bitcoin basically a part of a giant honeypot that could get hacked? Or do you hold the keys to your Bitcoin? So that's at a high level, just kind of how just single signature, we call it single sig when we compare it to multi-sig. How single sig works is you have one seed phrase, and then you have from that seed phrase, you get your addresses that you control. Now, taking that just a little bit further and kind of introducing multi-sig into the equation is where we really get that same model. On the left-hand side, you still have your seed phrases, you still have your private keys, but you're going to notice this flows a little bit different. We can take now that Bitcoin address and have that address not only constructed from just one key, we can have that address be constructed from a set of keys. So in this example, we have 3 here. So in multisig, really common thing that you're going to see if you read more about it or listen to podcasts is you're going to hear about 2 of 3 multisig, or sometimes elsewhere you might hear 3 of 5 multisig. Just kind of taking a high level step back at what that means is the 2 of 3, we'll use that as an example. That means that Bitcoin address on the right that has been created there, that's controlled by 2 out of a set of 3 total keys. So in order to move Bitcoin from that address, you wouldn't just need 1 key, you would need at least 2. So you need 2 keys to move that Bitcoin. If you were plopping that Bitcoin, you wanted to maybe pay a friend or move it out of your multi-sig setup, you would need approval from 2 keys. So in this example, we have on the left-hand side, 3 private keys. It means 3 distinct sets of seed phrases, be 3 hardware devices that generated those seed phrases. There's then those public keys, those locks that are used to construct that 1 Bitcoin address. So we think about multisig, how it compares to that single signature setup. Really, you just have more keys in play controlling a Bitcoin address. And you can think about it a little bit deeper. That Bitcoin address constructed and controlled by multiple keys. What that really does and why that's important, why it's so cool to work with and why Phil and I get so passionate about that is because multisig helps you eliminate a given key as a single point of failure. So, you might have more keys as a part of your setup, and that makes you feel good because you know that, hey, life is crazy, things happen. What if you lose one of your sets of 12 or 24 words? What if you lose that seed phrase? Well, if you were using single signature, that one seed phrase was kind of the be all end all of your Bitcoin and you lost it, that's a pretty scary situation to be in. But now with multi-signature, when you have more keys in play, if you're using a 2 of 3 multi-sig, you can, in a really horrible scenario, we still want to keep everything ultimately very physically secured and think hard about that. But if you think about what could happen, technically you could lose a device. One of your seed phrases could get destroyed. There's additional fault tolerance there, right? Things can go wrong. and you should still be confident that you have what you need in order to recover your Bitcoin. So you sleep easier at night, just an added way to still take self-custody principles into account, still hold the keys to your Bitcoin, but just do so in a manner that does allow for more errors to occur. And again, in a crazy scenario, you'd want to maybe fix those when they do occur, but you will know, you can kind of sleep easy at night knowing that one element of your setup, maybe two elements of your setup completely getting destroyed or lost or stolen is not going to be the be-all end-all of your Bitcoin and is not going to put your Bitcoin at risk. So just to recap, why multisig? Well, there's that increased fault tolerance. Something tragic could happen to one of those elements, your device or your associated seed phrase, and you're still going to be good. You eliminate your single points of failure, right? Those seed phrases, you're not just going to be, keeping one seed phrase and worrying about losing that. Same thing with your hardware wallets. Then yourself is also a single point of failure that you should really rather think hard about. So when we think about eliminating yourself as a single point of failure, that kind of leads into that last bullet point, opens you up to the possibility of collaborative custody multisig. What I was talking about before, 2 of 3 means that there's 3 total keys. 2 at any given time are needed to move your Bitcoin. Now those 2 keys could be held by you, so you have complete control over your multisig Bitcoin. But that 3rd key, if you want to eliminate yourself as a single point of failure, that 3rd key could be held by a collaborative custody member. And that's really what we work with at Unchained. That's what we want to strive to provide, is this kind of core messaging of you should really hold the keys to your Bitcoin, but we want to help you do so in the best way possible. So collaborative custody, really what we want to dive into now is an introduction to collaborative custody. And I'm going to hand it over to Phil now. Phil, how can we better think about collaborative custody? What does it really mean to eliminate ourselves as a single point of failure?
Well, one thing that people a lot of times will try to do when they're self-custodying their Bitcoin is in single signature is try to eliminate themselves as a single point of failure. Maybe you give your seed phrase to a loved one. The problem with that is if you have an address controlled by one key, if you give that key to someone else, they actually also have control of that Bitcoin. So we have seen a scenario where somebody gave a seed phrase to a loved one, and the loved one received a phishing email and thought they were being a good, Bitcoin citizen and accidentally compromised the seed phrase. So what's really cool about multisig is you can give a minority of keys to a partner, so that means you have still full control over the Bitcoin, but you've also eliminated yourself as a single point of failure in that if you make a mistake, the partner can step in and sign a transaction, but also the partner themselves can't lose your Bitcoin. So that's what we do at Unchained Capital. We help you set up multi-sig addresses, but we hold one key and our clients hold 2 out of 3 keys. So our clients have full permissionless access to their Bitcoin 24/7, 365 without Unchained even existing. But if anything happens, if you lose a seed phrase, if your device breaks, if you forget your PIN, we can step in and help to recover. Beyond just custody, though, we can start doing really, really cool financial products. And so at Unchained, we kind of view ourselves as your lifetime or multi-generational financial partner for all things Bitcoin. So we start from this foundation of security and custody with our vaults program. And we can do that for your individual vaults, your personal vaults, but then we can also do things like a retirement vault. We can set up a Bitcoin IRA where you have full control over the keys to the Bitcoin, but it's still tax advantaged. So in a traditional or Roth format. Additionally, we're kind of a full suite financial services provider. So you can buy and sell Bitcoin through our platform, and it's always either in your control or in our control. It's never in like this account that is protected by your email, right? It's either in your address where it's controlled by your 2 keys, or it's in one of our addresses where we have control. And then the final product that we offer is sort of this loan. So it's a Bitcoin collateralized loan where even in the scenario where your Bitcoin's collateralized, you get to hold 1 key, right? So you hold 1 key, we hold 1 key, and a third-party key agent holds that 3rd key. So the Bitcoin is essentially living in no man's land for the duration of the loan. No single entity is a single point of failure. No single entity can move the funds on their own. but we can lend US dollars. So this is the power of multisig, and in particular collaborative custody, in that you get to kind of have your cake and eat it too. Now there are some smaller trade-offs. If you're working with any entity that holds a key to a multisig quorum, they can of course see what's happening with those addresses. So there is a little bit of an anonymity trade-off, but at no point in time is Unchained or any other collaborative custody partner able to spend your Bitcoin without authentication from at least one of your keys. So if this sounds interesting to you, I'll hand it over now to Tyler, who can talk through maybe what are the next steps that people can take, Tyler.
Of course. So really, when we think about how to get started, something that Phil and I are both pretty passionate about is our concierge onboarding service. So you might be receiving a call to action on your screen here. It's going to link you to more information about our concierge onboarding service. Definitely recommend you keep that open in a tab or potentially even bookmark it. Take a look at our concierge onboarding packages. Really what that does and what we do with our concierge onboarding service, it's something that we do every single day with multiple clients. The cool part about it is we really take you from like complete zero, maybe if you're in the situation where all your Bitcoin's on a given exchange, to full multisig hero, where you're now controlling your two keys, how to use multisig. We'll go over how to deposit to a multisig, how to withdraw. We really cover everything. So we ship you some devices if you do need them, right? If you are just using an exchange and you've been interested in maybe setting up cold storage, setting up hardware devices, but you don't have any, we can send you some. Or you can bring your own, as long as they're the devices that we support. So Trezors, ledgers, and cold cards for the time being. So you arrive basically to a Zoom call. We do a one-on-one onboarding with you then. Well, we'll set up these devices if they need to be set up. Completely just out of the package, we'll help you set them up. We then use those devices to generate the seed phrases that I was talking about. We'll talk about best practices on how to safely secure those seed phrases. We use those keys then to build a multisig vault. And during that vault build, that's when we really dive into how to use it. We cover these, what Justine has kind of coined, the doomsday scenario. So that doomsday scenario, what happens if Unchained goes down? What happened if Unchained, the website's down and I can't access unchained.com where I can log in and see my balance? How do I know that I still have access to my Bitcoin? So we do recovery training. We can go over the different open source multi-sig tools that are out there that help you ensure that yourself is not going to be a single point of failure. Each one of your keys is not going to be a single point of failure, and Unchained is not going to be a single point of failure. And that's a really, really important point, that third bullet point on recovery training. We've done other webinars as a part of our continuing education series that cover this as well. It's called External Recovery, and it's really, really a fascinating element to multi-signature. So if you're watching this back, you're already on YouTube. I'm sure it's a couple clicks away. Definitely go check out that video. And as a part of being a concierge onboarding client or just a client of Unchained, you do have access to our monthly continuing education webinars. Really live storm sessions like this, pretty interactive. You can ask your questions. We do a really good deep dive onto different topics. The most recent one was last Friday. I was joined by our senior engineer, Buck Purley, to talk about Bitcoin fees. Maybe not specifically related to multi-sig vaults, but it's a Bitcoin topic that I think a lot of people should start to learn more about. We try to make it pretty fun and interactive as well. And of course, that last bullet point there, ongoing technical support. We understand that with great power comes great responsibility, right? Setting up these keys. Devices aren't perfect. From time to time, something might happen. You might have a question about your multisig, about how to deposit. Maybe you moved all your Bitcoin off of Coinbase to your multisig vault and you're feeling good, but the last time you did it was 3 months ago and you just need a little bit of a refresher on how to do it. Maybe you want to brush up on good best practices or learn more about the recovery training. We're here to help you every step of the way. So that's really what we want to do with our concierge onboarding session. Instill confidence in our users, in Bitcoin key holders. We want to navigate you so you know that you have a team kind of at your back if you do have any of these questions. So I do want to mention we do it all with a smile on our face too, as could probably be picked up from David Layton, that picture of David, director on our concierge services team on the right-hand side there. We will really walk you through every single step of the way. So again, I know that call to action popped up on your screen. I also encourage you to go over to unchained.com and look at our concierge services page, kind of give you everything you need to know. You can get on your way to signing up for the concierge onboarding process. Even if you're a pro, even if you're a technical expert, it is my opinion after doing, lots of these onboardings with folks, it's kind of nice. You talk to a human being for a full hour. We talk about these things that might get glanced over if you decide to do it on your own. So I do really encourage you to make use of that concierge onboarding session. Plus, we plop $1,000 worth of Bitcoin into your multisig vault at the completion of the session too. So you, of course, pay a little bit, but we do want to give you that Bitcoin rebate. So go there, find more information about our concierge onboarding service. So with that, covering on how to get started, we really want to open it up now to some Q&As, some really good questions. We've seen a bunch of good questions come in from the audience before on these webinars. We love to answer them, helps us keep ourselves on our toes. But also we want to inform, right? It has good replay value. If somebody's watching this back, they might have the same question. Again, questions, if you do have one or you're just thinking of one, please enter them in the questions field, lower right-hand portion of the live storm. You can also upvote questions there as well. But right now, we can move over to these questions. I'm just opening up the question.
Yeah, and actually, while you're doing that, Tyler, it's funny with the concierge onboarding, I always think about it as like, we know you have that cold card just sitting in your closet. It's been there for 7 months. You've been too afraid to open up the box and get it set up. Bring another device. We'll walk you through the whole process. So you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of new hardware wallets if you already have to. We'll take you through the process. So just kind of a nice feature. Get that hardware wallet out of your closet.
It's an excellent point. And it is the case. And it was the case with me, right? Everybody's Bitcoin journey, you start, maybe you buy one of those hardware devices and it kind of looks intimidating. That's when, again, it does help to have a human being there with you alongside you to help you set it up and get everything up and running. Q&A now. We're reading through the question list. What Phil and I are going to do is we'll probably each answer one. Some really awesome questions coming in. I'm going to pull them up on the screen for our live viewers. So you're going to see the question, but I'll also read it aloud, and then we'll begin answering them. So I'm going to pick one that I'm seeing come in from Richard here. This is a really good question. So I'm going to start live answer, and I'm going to see it. It should be popped up onto everybody's screen now. It says, if you set up multisig, say 3, and down the road, one of your hardware wallets failed. Now, I know you're able to access your Bitcoin with the other 2. Would you then get a new hardware wallet or move Bitcoin to a new address and recreate a new multisig? This is a fantastic question. There's a lot packed into this question. So if you're using Unchained, really cool part of our vaults product is we do have a key replacement operation that you can do in order to basically get yourself back to having a healthy vault. What we consider a healthy vault is where both of your keys are known, the whereabouts of them. Your seed phrases are physically secure, and you have no reason to believe that any element of your setup has been compromised. So you're absolutely right, Richard, that you'd be able to access your Bitcoin with the other 2. But if your hardware device breaks, right? Devices aren't perfect. If your hardware device breaks, what you can do is buy a new device. You can generate a new seed phrase. And then what you do is you conduct a key replacement procedure in our platform. Highly recommend you just talk to us while you're doing it, just so you have all the best practices down pat and we can kind of guide you along every step of the way. But effectively what happens in a key replacement is exactly what you mentioned in the last point of your question. You're effectively moving Bitcoin from one address that's controlled by now a key where you think your hardware device isn't working, to basically a new address that now is constructed from 2 healthy, known active keys. That key replacement procedure is offered in our platform. And then again, we are there to help you every step of the way with that.
Yeah, a couple points to add to that. If you do lose, or one of your hardware wallets does break and you do have to, set up a new quorum with a separate key, just make sure that you're going back and updating every place that old address was whitelisted. So if you're dollar cost averaging, or if you're using an exchange and you've whitelisted that address, you definitely want to make sure you're not sending Bitcoin to that old address where you've lost one of the keys. And then another pro tip is don't throw away old seed phrases, even if they've been compromised. And it's kind of to the previous point. If you accidentally had an old address whitelisted and you accidentally send Bitcoin to it, and maybe you only have 2 keys left and one of the keys is compromised, as long as you have that old seed phrase, you're good to go. You can pop it onto a device, sign the transaction.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And Richard, that question you asked, it is really, really good. It's a good way to think about this stuff, right? You always want to be thinking about what can go wrong and what steps can we take should something go wrong. Again, if your device breaks, but your seed phrase has been physically secured, you wrote down those 12 or 24 words and you have those safely secured, you can recover those onto a new Bitcoin wallet. And you won't even need to do a key replacement. You just use a new device. So again, there are options available to you. Really, there's a kind of a phrase we say internally, this is why we multisig, thank God for multisig.
All right, I see another great question that's been upvoted from Richard. So I'll start by answering this one. If you plan to hold both Bitcoin outside of an IRA as well as within an IRA product, I assume the Bitcoin are not allowed to co-mingle. Would they sit in two different addresses or two different multi-sig wallets? The answer to that is yes. So on our platform, on Unchained, you can set up different account types, a personal account type, a business account type, an IRA account type. Those are all different legal titles, right? So in the IRA, the Bitcoin is titled to the IRA. Now, from a Bitcoin wallet perspective, you can use the same seed phrases, same hardware wallets, and you can build entirely different multi-sig wallets, just living at kind of different locations. So that's a really cool feature. You don't have to go and buy a bunch of different hardware wallets. As long as you have two hardware wallets and two seed phrases that are very secure, you can use them across contexts, and the Bitcoin is legally titled to whatever the entity is.
See a great question coming in from Dave here, so I'm going to pull that up on the screen. We have, besides the seed phrase for multiple keys, are there other key items, no pun intended, I'm assuming, the user must save to store safely when using multi-sig compared to single sig? So, Dave, this is a great question. So part of what we were covering before, that recovery training, that's as a part of the Unchained, kind of what we offer as part of our concierge service, and thinking about eliminating Unchained as a single point of failure. You're right. Alongside your seed phrases for multiple keys, you want to keep those seed phrases physically secure. You want to keep those devices secure. But then also, to eliminate Unchained as a single point of failure, you want to know that you can recover your multisig vault using another Bitcoin wallet software. What you need in order to do that is what we call your external spending information. It's oftentimes called a wallet configuration file, and it contains details on the public keys that were used to construct your vault. There's some other technical details in there as well. We think about this, and we have a great blog post about this on the Unchained website. We think about this wallet configuration file as being the treasure map to your Bitcoin addresses. So your keys are the keys to the treasure chest, but if you have the keys, you need to know where the treasure chest is located. So this treasure map, this wallet configuration file, is that treasure map that you could take to another Bitcoin wallet software. You could take it to Caravan, which is our open source tool that our engineers work on. It's one of the easiest ways to recover your Unchained vault. You can open up Caravan right in your browser, plop that file, that wallet configuration file, into Caravan, and you'd be able to see all of your balances appear, and you could use your two hardware wallets to move Bitcoin as you so please right from Caravan, again, not needing Unchained.com. There's also Sparrow Wallet, which is a fairly popular, really awesome wallet that you would download, along with Electrum is another wallet configuration tool, a wallet coordinator tool that you could feed your treasure map to. So Dave, just going back to, purely answering your question, yes, you should be thinking about keeping your wallet configuration file, that treasure map, safe. Now, some kind of an asterisk there, we allow you to download that from your Unchained vault. So your vault has an area where you can download this wallet configuration file. Now you're downloading it to your computer. So I do want to note that it is okay to keep this file digital. This file contains your public key information. It is not going to be security sensitive in the way that somebody with access to this file could move your Bitcoin, right? If somebody has the treasure map, they do not have the treasure. What they would be able to know is how much Bitcoin you have. Maybe they could take your file and take it to Caravan. And then if they know you, they'd say, okay, Dave has this much Bitcoin, and that is considered a privacy risk. So while this file is okay to be kept digitally, we do recommend that you still secure this file, possibly using cloud encryption, maybe behind a password manager, somewhere that you know is secure, but it does not have to be physically secured and printed out. Obviously, that's an option if you'd like to go to those lengths, but keeping it digitally stored is okay, just so long as you don't just have it maybe sitting out on your desktop or something like that.
That's right. So when you're down in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach, you can pop that file into or like load it up into Caravan from any internet cafe and move your funds. So if you have that file digital, then you can find your Bitcoin from anywhere. All right. Looks like Chris has another question kind of about the Unchained IRA. So we do have, as I mentioned, the ability to hold tax advantage Bitcoin. You hold the keys to it. But if one chooses to use your multisig option, can you apply that same multisig security to a Roth IRA, a SEP IRA, and a taxable account with one multisig setup? So what I think you're asking is, can you do that all at Unchained with only 2 devices? And the answer is yes. You only need to buy 2 hardware wallets, and you can set up a personal account, a Roth IRA account, a traditional IRA account, a SEP IRA account, a business account, and a family trust account. Now, the way that we do that is we use different public keys that are generated from your seed phrases that are located in different areas, right? So we actually don't recommend purchasing a pile of hardware wallets, because every physical object that you have to secure is operational risk, right? You have to be checking on those things periodically. And if you have hardware wallets, they're pieces of technology. And so you have to make sure that the firmware is updated occasionally, like once every few months, I would say. So yes, we can help you to set up vaults or accounts across all these different legal contexts, starting from just 2 seed phrases, 2 hardware wallets. That's all you need. Great question.
Keep upvoting those questions, audience members. And if you do have a question, please post it in the questions tab that is separate from the chat tab. Just want to reiterate that. I do see another question here that I can pull up. This question is from Dean. I'm interested in joining Unchained Capital to benefit from multisig. However, can you please discuss options other than the concierge service for those that are interested? So Dean, I do want to note, Phil did touch on just some of our other services we offer through that foundation of collaborative custody multisig. So if you did miss that portion earlier, there's going to be a replay right after this. So I just wanted to make sure you know that, just in case you joined late, but I'll certainly cover them here as well. So again, we build our products in mind, these financial products, on the foundation of multisig, on the foundation of collaborative custody. So some of the other services we offer, Phil was just touching on the IRAs that we offer in more form of like an institutional account where you could set up a trust. You have your IRA account holding the keys to your Bitcoin retirement. That is just an incredible product in its own right, thinking about not only the tax advantages that come with retirement funds, but then also having them be in the world's best money. That's just an incredible product that is relatively newer to Unchained suite of services. Other products include Unchained loans. So we do have a lending product as a part of our financial suite. What you'd be able to do is post your Bitcoin as a collateral for a loan. And the way that's structured, how we incorporate collaborative custody into the mix, is that you can provide a key to a multi-sig address where Unchained holds a key, you hold a key, and we have a third-party key agent hold a key as well. That way, if you need to deposit collateral for a loan, you send it to a multi-sig address, and since you hold a key, you can always just view that address, make sure that your collateral is safely stored, and not being kind of going back to the earlier part of the presentation when Phil was talking about, kind of why we self-custody. if you hold a key to that loan address, you can ensure that we're not moving your Bitcoin collateral out, making other investments with it or trying to earn a yield on it or anything like that. What we do is we keep your collateral in multisig, you hold a key to it, and we are able to offer US dollars. So that is an incredibly nice way to, hey, friends don't let friends sell Bitcoin. So it's an incredibly nice way to get that dollar liquidity if you need it and you're in a pinch, without having to sell your Bitcoin and incurring cap gains taxes, and losing out on your portion of 21 million Bitcoin. So our IRA product, we do have the loans product, and we do have an OTC desk as well. You are able to buy Bitcoin through Unchained Capital. Now that is a newer product as well that we're kind of bringing to market, hopefully in more states in the near future. It is a state-by-state basis right now, but be on the lookout for further product offerings with our Buy Bitcoin trading desk. So excellent question, Dean. Do want to note again, replay for this presentation is going to start right after we end the webinar today. So if you did want to, go back and catch some of that, I really encourage you to.
And I think one additional thing just to note is that you can set up a personal vault on your own with your 2 hardware wallets at no charge. So there's no setup or storage fee if you want to do it on your own. We have an excellent guide written by Porter at Unchained, DIY Vault Setup Guide. That said, I kind of recommend the Concierge onboarding service. It's, in my opinion, priced pretty well, and we'll walk you through everything and help you avoid pitfalls and landmines. If you want to try multisig on your own without using any company, caravanmultisig.com is our open source multisig tool. That's free to use for anyone. So anywhere in the world, you don't need an account. You just go to caravanmultisig.com and you can use your hardware wallets to construct a multisig wallet. So if you're just looking for custody, don't want to pay for the concierge onboarding, personal Unchained vaults are free to set up and there's no ongoing fees for those.
Perfect. Awesome. Looking through some questions here. I do see a really awesome question from Steve. So I'm going to pull that up. And this question is, as new and improved keys become available, can you replace your original keys with new ones, even though they're a different brand? So we do support, Trezor, Ledger, cold card devices. Obviously, the hardware device space in Bitcoin, it's growing. There's a lot of cool things being done, and we are, really intent on being able to provide support for other hardware devices in the future. Now, the thing to note here, Steve, and this is a really good question, is it really comes down to your physically secured seed phrase. If you're using a cold card device and that generates you a 24-word seed phrase, but then maybe the new MK4 version of the cold card comes out, or there's a new device that we support, we release support for it. Well, if your physically secured seed phrase, if those 24 words you've written down, if those are secured by you and you have no reason to believe that those have been compromised, what you'd be able to do is you could just load those 24 words. We could certainly help you onto a new device, whatever that might be, maybe the new cold card, maybe something else. And that now can be a key in your vault, just like your old device was. So just because a new device comes out or there's a new brand pops up and we offer support for it, that does not necessarily mean you need to build some new vaults or do a key replacement procedure or anything like that. If you have your physically secured seed phrase, you can just load up that seed phrase into the device and you'll be all set to go. So great question. It gets me pretty excited for what's on the horizon with different companies making different devices. It's going to be some fun stuff in the upcoming year, but excellent question. And just again, a reminder, keep your seed phrases physically secure. So if a new device does come to market, you know that you're good to use that seed phrase and load it into a new device.
All right, I see a good question that I'd like to answer here. So Abhi asks, what are services that Unchained offers and corresponding fees for the services? Are they simple to understand or do they have a lot of gotchas? So I think one of our kind of company, the way we feel about it is we want to be as transparent and open as possible. So we really don't try to obscure or hide any of our fees. So I mentioned earlier that personal vaults are are free to use. You can set up a vault on your own. You can hold your own keys. It's multisig. Multisig is native to Bitcoin. You can do it for free with Sparrow, Electrum, Caravan. So we don't think we should charge clients just for personal vaults. Now, what we do charge for are all of the value-added services. So, for example, the Unchained IRA, pretty transparent. There's a $995 setup fee. We charge additionally if you would like our one-on-one hand-holding for onboarding, so an additional $250 for concierge onboarding if you want it. And then if you need hardware wallets, you can add those on as well. And then the trading fee is 0.5%. So that's it. Beyond that, there's a $250 per year annual fee for the IRA. $995 setup, 0.5% trading fee, $250 per year annual fee. The trading desk, also 0.5% trading fee for volumes above $50,000. Loans, we have a full and more complete rates table on our loans page, but the origination fees are anywhere from 0.5% to 1%, and monthly interest is anywhere from 9 to 14%. But you're getting categorically superior security from anyone else on the market when you're getting an Unchained loan. It's not even comparable. You have a key, we have a key. There's no single points of failure for your Bitcoin. It's not being rehypothecated. The other fees, Bitcoin accounts for 2 users, $250 a year. If you have more than 2 users, it does bump up to a monthly fee. And then we spoke already about our concierge onboarding. It's $1,250 base fee for individuals, add on hardware wallets if you need them. And it comes with $1,000 back of Bitcoin. That's to help you get all the way through the process, get some Bitcoin into your vault, ensure that you're getting comfortable with holding the keys, testing out transactions. It's just a nice little rebate we offer.
See another good question from Mark. I'm going to provide an answer to this, and maybe Phil can expand on it as well. It says, can you discuss the trade-offs of privacy versus security with multisig, mainly sending multiple transactions from single sig, so just from maybe a hardware device you've been operating with that's securing some Bitcoin just by itself, to multisig, to one multisig address. So Mark, excellent question. Love that you're thinking about kind of privacy in general. Thinking about this, we'll preface this with right now your Unchained Vault. If you click on deposit, it's going to be showing you your most recent deposit address, and that is going to stay the same until you withdraw Bitcoin from your vault. Then the next time you go to make a deposit, we show you a new fresh address. Right now, that's currently how the platform was constructed. We've grown the platform a lot. We've grown the company a lot. We're really making some strides to make improvements to our platform. And one of those improvements is really, really exciting. Be the opportunity to deposit to a new address every time. So that's something that you can do in multisig, of course. I did see another question related to that. And I would be on the lookout for that feature release really soon. But something I kind of want to hone in on here, the way that I at least think about, the privacy with my Bitcoin and multisig. Now, of course, privacy and security, privacy versus security with multisig, as Phil highlighted earlier, there's an anonymity trade-off to having a collaborative custody member, right? You're sharing one of your public keys with us. So that is something to consider. Now, however, you might weigh the security of your multisig, of your Bitcoin setup, you holding the keys versus, that anonymity trade-off might be more in favor of security. That's kind of what I think about when I think about collaborative custody. I want to hold the keys and I want to eliminate myself as a single point of failure. One of the ways that I can do that is working with a company like Unchained Capital. I'm okay with making that trade-off. Now, when we think about sending Bitcoin to a single address, kind of something I want to note here, and this is diving a little bit deep, but it's kind of interesting. I think it's definitely worth looking up more information on after this webinar. What we want to think about when depositing to a multisig is making sure that your funds are on an address that has not been spent from. That's why right now, as the platform operates, after every time you spend out of your vault, the next time you go to deposit will give you a new address, because that address we're using before, that has been spent from. Now, why is that? Why do we want to keep Bitcoin on an address that has not been spent from before? Even if it is multiple transactions, multiple deposits to the same address, if that address has not been spent from before, that does keep some of your privacy. Because when you spend from an address, when you spend from a multisig address, and I know this is kind of getting just a little bit deep, but when you spend from a multisig address on the Bitcoin blockchain, there's some information then that's given up about that address. And that information highlights that that given address was a 2 of 3 multisig. It shows how that address was built. And, if somebody's watching the Bitcoin blockchain and I keep using an address that I've already spent from, so that information that address is a 2 of 3 multisig and I keep using it, well, I don't want somebody out there knowing that, oh, that Bitcoin address is Tyler's, looks like he's using a 2 of 3 multisig. So the reason why we provide you a new deposit address after every time you withdraw from your vault is because we want your funds to be on a new, fresh address that has not been spent from before. That in and of itself is some just privacy, low-hanging fruit that we like to instill as a best practice. Now, of course, getting an entirely new deposit address every time is also in line with that. And I would keep your eye out for something like that coming from Unchained in the future.
All right, and it looks like Ty has a question. So with the multisig, does Unchained maintain one of the 3 wallets? So if you're using an Unchained vault, Unchained holds one of 3 keys to the multisig wallet. And a wallet is a collection or series of addresses that are controlled by keys. So we build a multisig wallet from 3 keys, your 2 keys, Unchained's key. The addresses are fully in your control, but if you lose a hardware wallet, forget a PIN, lose a seed phrase, Unchained can step in and use our key to help you recover the funds. So Unchained at no point in time controls the Bitcoin or is a single point of failure for the Bitcoin. But yes, one of our keys is used to build your vault addresses.
Cool. I'm diving through some more questions here. Really awesome questions today, everyone. Thank you for adding them to that questions box. We love talking about this stuff. We talk about this stuff all day long, basically, as Phil and I do, which is kind of cool. I do see a question from Richard. Phil, I almost want to see if you could answer this question, since I know this concierge process, this concierge service. I love doing it. Do it every day with clients. But Phil has really been spearheading the efforts of multi-sig education, including the concierge onboarding program as a whole. So this question from Richard, Phil, I don't know if you see it there at the top. If you could bring that forward for the audience and give an explainer there.
Absolutely. So Richard says, random question, not necessarily important, but curious. Is there a logistic reason that we offer $1,000 of Bitcoin for our concierge onboarding service? The answer is yes. So we, prior to the official launch of concierge onboarding, we were doing these services, helping people learn about multisig, hold their own keys, and we would get all the way through the process of building a vault. And then clients wouldn't take that next step of actually using the vaults. So including $1,000 of Bitcoin in the concierge onboarding ensures that at the end of the call, you have $1,000 there that you are now in full control of. So it also helps incentivize clients to go ahead and geographically distribute keys and actually secure things really well. If you don't have any money in there, no skin in the game, then you're less likely to actually take the step of taking a seed phrase and putting it into somewhere like a safety deposit box or geographically separating the different items. So I would say ultimately the $1,000 of Bitcoin is included in our concierge onboarding because it helps us to align incentives and drive results faster. And who doesn't need another $1,000 of Bitcoin? Most importantly, maybe. Thanks, Richard.
I just live upvoted that question after that component. Absolutely, that was great.
Awesome. It looks like we just have one more question here, and you kind of covered that already, but maybe we can just pop it up again and just cover it one more time. Tyler, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, of course. So the question is, does the single sig, or just using one hardware device, one seed phrase, does the single sig best practice of using a new receive address every time apply to multi-sig as well? Or does something about the multi-sig setup prevent this? So yes, that best practice does apply to anytime you hold the keys to your own Bitcoin. Depositing to a new address every time, just from a somebody watching that address on the Bitcoin blockchain, if they're using a block explorer, is a tool that you can use to kind of examine the Bitcoin blockchain. If you're using a new deposit address every time you go to make a deposit, it's really hard, pretty much, I would say close to impossible to see where a collection of addresses, who that collection of addresses belongs to. So it does help with some anonymity and some privacy. That definitely applies to multisig as well. You hold the keys to your multisig. You have some multisig addresses. So we, of course, recognize that as a company, we have our incredible product and engineering teams putting in pretty hard work to be able to bring this to our multisig vault product. So again, maybe too much of an Easter egg at this point, but be on the lookout for that. But the most important thing, again, when I think about privacy and depositing to addresses is, again, when I was answering for Mark previously, making sure that my Bitcoin is being deposited to an address that I have not spent from. And we do make this pretty pretty apparent in the platform. If you do have funds that maybe you send to an address that you've already used, that it's already been spent from, your Bitcoin's still secured by multisig, still secured by your own two keys, but somebody looking at the blockchain, if they knew that was your address and they know that it's a 2 of 3 multisig, might be some stuff that you don't want to, you don't want to have that out there. So we would, of course, work with you to get that amount of Bitcoin up to a new, fresh address. And of course, after every time you make a withdrawal from your vault, we do provide you with a new, fresh address to use. So excellent question. Again, be on the lookout. It's a pretty exciting time to be joining Unchained as a client, I must say. Unchained Capital sales hat off. I think the work that is being done is really, really fantastic. So awesome question.
Yeah, and I think just a couple notes to add there. When we think about multisig, we really, like, our platform and multisig in general is definitely more optimized for ultra secure long-term storage. So your multi-signature wallet isn't necessarily the wallet that you're going to be using for your daily transactions. Maybe you have a mobile Lightning wallet. Maybe you have a single signature wallet for the smaller amounts of funds that you need to be transacting with. So when we constructed the vaults originally, again, that was we were a little laser focused, I think, on ultra secure long-term storage. And so we built out a bunch of additional features that are definitely important to consider when you're dealing really with any Bitcoin wallet, but things such as confirming the address on your hardware wallet. So when you're living in this world where we have like a single deposit address at a time and it changes only when you spend, you can be totally certain that you have the keys to that address by connecting your hardware wallets and checking the address on the device before you send money to it. So that's really, in my opinion, the strongest check that you can do to ensure that you actually own a Bitcoin address, is to show it on your hardware wallet. So then you're not trusting Unchained, you're not trusting your computer, you're trusting your cold storage devices. So yeah, just a couple notes to add to that, but thank you.
I know we are coming up on the hour here. Dave had a question right at the buzzer that I think is something we can answer for you, Dave. So I want to get that taken care of real quickly. It says, can you quickly walk through the process of how you sign a transaction when your keys are geographically distributed? Great question. This is actually a really cool part about using multisig too, is you don't need to bring both of your devices together, right? Because then having them together, something crazy happens, co-locating those keys, just good best practice, maybe keep them separate. You can sign a transaction when your keys are geographically separated. So what you'd do is you'd author up a transaction in the Unchained platform. You'd select withdraw, you'd enter a Bitcoin address, choose the amount of Bitcoin you want to be sending across the network. And then when it comes time to get the signatures from your devices, you could sign. Right now I'm up in Wisconsin. I could sign with my device up in Wisconsin. And then that's one signature that's been gathered. If I logged out of the Unchained platform and logged back in and went to my vault, on the screen of my vault, it would say, transaction in progress, and you'd be able to click a little button that says view transaction, and you could then sign with your second device. So if I signed a transaction with one of my devices up here in Wisconsin, I could log out of my Unchained vault. I could travel back down to Texas, Bitcoin capital of the world, access my second device, log into my Unchained vault, select view transaction, and then sign with my device down there as well. You do not need to have your devices with you, both of them, in order to provide both of those signatures. So it's a great question. We do have videos on how to conduct a withdrawal. So if you could maybe, just put a little bit of a user interface to my answer here, that video might be helpful out on our YouTube. But Dave, that's a really good question. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody, again, for the just incredible questions. It was great going through all this stuff. Again, we get to do it every single day with clients, one-on-one fashion. The opportunity to get everybody on a webinar and talk about this stuff, it's pretty special. So thank you again for joining. Be on the lookout for more of these webinars coming from Unchained Services. We'd love to have you join. We'll be pushing it out on social media, of course, posting to our YouTube channel later on as well. So you can catch all of this again and continuing your Bitcoin education. So with that, I think we are going to be ending the webinar here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate your time.